All right, guys, welcome to the Southsiders in the North End podcast. Welcome back. It's our first actual podcast talking about the game that happened this Saturday, May the 4th, be with you, versus Houston Dynamo. Title of this is "Oh No, We Drew Again," for our sixth, seventh draw of the season. Real quick, I'm just going to run through the starting lineup and give you um, my opinions on the starting 11, give you the subs, my opinion on the subs, some of the key plays, and we would talk about the goals, but it was a 0-0 draw. So getting right into it, let's talk about that starting 11. Starting in goal, we had Roman Berkey, right back, Thomas Totland. Center backs, we had Tim Parker and Kyle Hebert. Left back, we had Anthony Marcanic. Our two pivots, we had Chris Durkin and Thomas Ostrak. On the left, we had Celio Pompeo. As our number 10, we had Indy Vassilev, and on the right, we had Rasmus Alm. And up top, we had our number 9, Joao Klaus. Like I said in the introductory video, the introductory podcast, this is a very positive podcast for St. Louis City. So a lot of people I've heard are not happy with the amount of draws we've had. But if we think back to last season, when we were in these types of situations, we were losing these games. We weren't early in the season. We weren't coming back from behind. We weren't playing to win, even playing to get points on the road. We only have one loss, and there's only one other team in the MLS right now with one loss, and they are one of the top teams in the league at win the Columbus Crew. All we've got to do is start putting some points up with wins at home for sure and continue to get points on the road. And I think we will be A-OK moving forward. All right. So Berkey played great. I don't remember the exact number of saves. I want to say it was over 6. Played a great game. He was my player of the game. I typed this out in the 80th minute. He was my player of the game. I don't think anything was going to change that. Even if we gave up a goal, he would be our player of the game for St. Louis City. Thomas Totland, most consistent right back I've seen in the MLS, other than maybe Houston's right back. But he's our best all-around player going forward, on the ball, passing, possessing, all of that. Tim Parker played his usual, out of his mind, continued to win battle after battle. There were a couple battles along the end line that I think he was close to coming in with a little bit of a hard tackle, but slowed up so that he could win the tackle, win the ball instead of get the penalty called on him. Kyle Hebert, he's serviceable. He didn't do anything flashy. He didn't do anything really wrong. He did his job, and he can't ask for much more. When they shifted him out to right back, I was really nervous that we were going to lose the game with his past at right back. It's not been great. So when they moved him out, I was a little bit worried that he'd be going up against some speed and he wouldn't be able to keep up, but he did his job. He didn't make too many mistakes. He possessed the ball well, and I think Fop Mob had him as a 7.2 on their rating scale. Left back, Anthony Marcanic. I understand why he's starting. We've been winning. We've been getting points. He hasn't looked absolutely terrible as a left back. I think he's more of a left wing back. So if we were playing a 5-back system, I think he'd be perfect in that left wing back position. I'm not a huge fan of him at left back. He's very good going forward, but sometimes he's really, really slow coming back. I saw a couple times last night where we had Celio Pompeo coming back faster than Anthony Marcanic, which in my opinion can't really happen as a left wing when we're playing a 4-2-3-1. I'd love to see Dewar get some more minutes, but I understand why Marcanic is starting. We haven't really lost when he was in. Moving up to the midfield, Durkin and Ostrak. Durkin, always that hard-nosed ball winner, really the hard-nosed ball winner. This game, his possession left a little bit to be desired, but he was winning balls and continuing to be all over the pitch. Ostrak continued to be better this year than he's been last year. He continued to improve upon his game and possess. He had that really nice slick dribble around the center backs of Houston that ended up getting Klaus's really big opportunity, but we will cover that when the time comes. Celio and Indy, I don't really have much on them. Celio only played 45 minutes. In the 45 minutes he played well. He did his thing. He took people on, found passes into the midfield, into the center, into the box, all that, like he does. Indy continued to play well at that 10 with the possession and continuing to distribute out wide and start that press. Alm on his wing on that right side, you can always count on Alm to start the press. Continues to start it the entire time he's out there. He's been good with the ball, good possessing. He played really well going forward. A little bit too slow at times, but for the most part, he played extremely, extremely like Rasmus Alm does. And Joao Klaus, who got some flack for not finishing the sitter that he had, but he seemed like the most dangerous player on the field the whole game. He's the only one that kept on making the runs, taking the shots, starting the press. You saw that when some of our subs came on, they might not have had I don't want to say passion, but they didn't have the drive to be running as much as Joao Klaus did. And he continued to run the entire time he was out there. All right, moving into those subs. AZ for Celio. My first instinct was just why? Celio was playing well. And he's been our most consistent winger the entire season. I haven't heard any reports of an injury, but he did seem to pick up a knock at the very end of the first half. And that's the only reason that I can think he came out. A little bit later, we had Sam Adeniran for Alm. Again, my question was why? Because Alm continues to provide dangerous press on the ball. And putting balls in. Sam hasn't shown the ability to press consistently and plays sometimes one-dimensional. He likes to turn and go forward, and he goes forward fast, which is really good, really beneficial. But when you have a guy like Rasmus Alm who's been possessing the ball, pressing the ball, and putting balls in for a guy like Klaus, I think he would really benefit from having a second big guy in there like Sam Dinner. And I think Sam Dinner could have come in for Indy, and we would have had a better result having Rasmus Alm out there with him. It also changed our formation from 4-2-3-1 to more of a 4-4-2 diamond formation. Forces us to be extremely narrow and not providing the width needed to both help Marcanic and for Marcanic to continue to move forward and come back. Sam didn't seem to want to press. He seemed a little bit unmotivated, didn't quite have the desire to press like Klaus, press like Indy was. He makes you think what's going on in his head, after being left out of the team for a week or two. Seems like he needs to kind of get his mojo back because we know that he's got that mojo, got that ability to turn it on with the switch and just go. We saw that against Real Salt Lake. We saw that against Houston Dynamo at home. And I think he just needs to find that balance, find that switch. All right, going on for Kojima and Ostrak. I feel like this makes sense. Ostrak losing his temper. He just sat down randomly in the middle of the game. Was probably hurt. And right after that, he got up and started pushing with the Houston Dynamo center back. That one makes sense. I think that's the only one that really, really, really makes sense. In my opinion, at the timing of it. Thor for Klaus. I like this sub, but I just wish that it would have happened earlier. Klaus was the only one giving the runs in the midfield from the midfield and providing the ball so that he could run off of them. This allowed Thor to kind of stay out more wide and gave us the ability to continue to widen the field and bring in that more of that 4-2-3-1 or traditional 4-4-2 formation so that we could widen the game and give our wingbacks the options that they needed. But that comes along with, at the same time, a Nielsen for Thomas Totland sub. This one I did not understand. Pushing Hebert to the right has not worked. I called it in the 83rd minute. I thought we were going to lose because of his lack of support over there. Hebert does well defensively. He does not do as well going forward. I think Hebert is a very, very serviceable, very decent center back. When you start pushing him out to the wings, I'd rather have him on the left side rather than the right, just because he seems more comfortable taking that touch with his left foot, passing it with his right foot, rather than taking that touch with his right and having to open up all the way and pass that ball with his right foot. That is all we have for the players. We've gone through everybody that played. Other than Berkey, I want to point out Klaus continued to run the entire time he was out there. Even when he was getting subbed off, he understood we want to score. We want to win this game. So what we're going to do is we're going to get off the field really quick so that Thor can come in and do his thing. Thor came on. He did his thing. Nielsen for Totland did not make sense to me. I like Totland out there. Totland's the most consistent player we have. I like seeing Nielsen back on the pitch. I think we really need him on the pitch for us. I think he's one of our better, if not our best, center back that we have. And I think a Nielsen Parker center back duo is what is needed to fortify our defensive side. But I mean, you can't really complain. We've got a couple clean sheets in the past three clean sheets in the past 4 games. 0-0 against Dallas, 1-0 against Austin, and then again 0-0 against Houston. We like to keep these Texas teams to a shutout. It really seems like. Um, Moving on to some of those key plays. The ball that I talked about earlier that Ostrak dribbled through the center backs and continued to kind of shift back and forth in between them, landed on a bouncing ball to Klaus and on the 6-yard box that he skied over the bar. I personally think in that moment he probably had time for a very short touch, um, and take a shot at that point. He didn't take the touch. I understand why he didn't take the touch. He was on the 6-yard box, keeper closing him, center back closing him. It's hard to rationalize taking that touch in that situation. But it's neither here nor there. It doesn't kill us. It's not the reason we lost. We just drew. We could have gotten those 3 points if he finishes there, but we've seen some higher level strikers make the same type of mistakes. You look at Darwin Nunez at Liverpool. You look at Cole Palmer, Nico Jackson at Chelsea, who have at times just missed the mark completely. Mykhailo Mudryk, speaking of Chelsea, Mykhailo Mudryk has a couple. He just sends way wide. It happens. It doesn't always work out. You want to get that ball on your foot that you're playing it in. Best case scenario, we score that goal, we win the game, we get the 3 points. That also doesn't mean that we wouldn't have gone into a defensive shell and not had the same pressure that we would have had going forward. Shortly after that, Klaus had his acrobatics where he had the overhead kick. I think he was probably about, I want to say 3 inches on his foot away from that being a top bins goal and being goal of the match day. But it wasn't in the cards for us this week. We did not seem to have that finishing touch this week, which, like I said earlier, soccer is so fickle. You can have a great game, you can have a terrible game, but have one thing either go your way or go against you that will completely shift how the game is looked at. Yellow card for Schmidt against Marcanic. This was the first instance that we had seen, probably a man down with the training staff coming on, that he would have had to stay off for that 2 minutes for treatment. But since it was a yellow card action, he was able to come right back on the field. Because the law of the game is now in the MLS that if you are down for longer than 15 seconds and the training staff have to come on, those are two very key points, that you have to go off and get treatment for 2 minutes. And unless it's a yellow or red card action or a head injury. And then the last one that I want to talk about is the yellow card for AZ Jackson. He lost the ball trying to switch the play. I understand why he tried to do that. We hadn't had a lot going forward at that point. He wanted to switch the ball so that we could get going forward. He just took a heavy touch, and the center midfielder just stole it off his foot. He came in and tried to continue that pass and just not nicked his foot right after. And then the last thing what I want to end with is the goals. Normally I would want to talk about what happened to the goal, the buildup, maybe show you a replay of it. But there were no goals other than the couple of opportunities from Klaus. Sam had one that he was in the box for. And Ostrak's dribbling through the box on the City end. Very boring. Berkey had to make a couple really good saves. Other than those couple good saves, it was very boring. Going from a 3-3 draw that was extremely exciting, extremely interesting against Sporting Kansas City to a 0-0 draw against Houston Dynamo. It's the tale of soccer. You can either score a bunch of goals or score no goals with the same result. One looks a lot better. The 3-3 draw reminds me of the LA Galaxy game. That was an extremely good promotion of the League of MLS. Whereas, this game against Houston Dynamo was not that exciting, was not that interesting. But that's soccer. Anybody that's played soccer knows that it can either go your way with one kick of the ball, go against you with one kick of the ball. But For now, that's all I have on the Southsiders and the North End podcast. Next week, I will again not be in the North End. I will be watching from TV because my wife is going with her family instead of myself next week. So I'll have more of a breakdown again there. But on Wednesday, we'll have kind of a special podcast week. Next week is we'll have the game on Saturday the 11th against Chicago Fire. And then Wednesday again against LAFC back at home. I'll be in the North End for that one. And then on Saturday the 18th, we go to Cincinnati. So we've got 3 big games this week, 2 at home. Hopefully we get 6 points there and we get another point on the road. That puts us at 7 points in 3 games. I think that would be ideal. Kind of rocket us back up to the top 5, top 4, because that's what the table is looking like right now. As of today, we sit 9th with 13 points, still ahead of Sporting Kansas City by 2 points, but behind Houston Dynamo, who we drew by 1 point. That's all I have. So here's looking forward to the rest of the season. Here's looking forward to the next 3 games in a week, starting on Saturday, May 11th. So until then, see ya.